Hello everyone, this is chapter number 2 summary of Shreemad Bhagwad Geeta, and it starts like this. Sanjay said, Lord Krishna spoke these words to Arjun, whose eyes were tearful and downcast, and who was overwhelmed with the compassion and despair. O King, Lord Krishna, as if smiling, spoke these words to distressed Arjun in the midst of two armies. The Supreme Lord said, You grieve for those who are not worthy of grief, and yet speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. There was never a time when these monarchs, you or I, did not exist, nor shall we ever cease to exist in the future. Just as a living being acquires a childhood body, a youth body, and an old age body during this life, similarly, it acquires another new body after the death. The wise are not deluded by this. The contacts of the senses with the sense objects give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pain and pleasure. They are transitory or impermanent. Therefore, learn to endure them, O Arjun, because a calm person who is not afflicted by these sense objects and is steady in pain and pleasure becomes fit for immortality, O Arjun. The spirit is eternal, body is transitory. The invisible spirit is eternal, and the visible world, including the physical body, is transitory. The reality of these two is indeed certainly seen by the seers of truth. The spirit by which all this universe is pervaded is indestructible. No one can destroy the imperishable spirit. Bodies of the eternal, immutable, and incomprehensible spirit are perishable. Therefore, fight, O Arjun. One who thinks that a spirit is a slayer and one who thinks a spirit is a slain are both ignorant, because a spirit neither slays nor is slain. The spirit is neither born nor does it die at any point of time. It does not come into being or cease to exist. It is unborn, eternal, and permanent and primeval. The spirit is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. O Arjun, how can a person who knows that the spirit is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed? Just as a person puts on the new garments and after discarding the old ones, similarly the living entity acquires new bodies after casting away the old bodies. Weapons do not cut this spirit, fire does not burn it, water does not make it wet, and the wind doesn't make it dry. Spirit cannot be cut, burned, wet, or dried. It is eternal, all-pervading, unchanging, immovable, and primeval. The spirit is said to be unexplainable, incomprehensible, and unchanging. Knowing this spirit as such, you should not grieve. Even if you think that this living being takes birth and dies perpetually, even then, O Arjun, you should not grieve like this, because death is certain for one who is born, and birth is certain for one who dies, and the cycle of birth-death continues. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. All beings, O Arjun, are unmanifest, invisible to our physical eyes before birth and after death. They manifest between the birth and the death only. Where is there to grieve about? Some look upon this spirit as a wonder, another describe it as a wonderful, and the other hear it of as a wonder. Even after hearing about it, a very few people know that, O Arjun, the spirit that dwells in the body of all beings is eternally indestructible. Therefore, you should not mourn for anyone. Considering also your duty as a warrior, you should not waver, because there is nothing more auspicious for a warrior than a right war. Only the fortunate warriors, O Arjun, get such an opportunity for a righteous war against evil that is like an open door to heaven. The righteous war is not a religious war against the followers of other religions. The righteous war may be waged even against our own evildoer kith and kin. Life is a continuous battle between the forces of evil and goodness. Whosoever kills an innocent human being, it shall be regarded as if he has killed the entire humanity. It is better to die for a right cause and acquire the grace of sacrifice than to die an ordinarily but compulsory death. The gates of heaven open wide for those who stand up to vindicate justice and righteousness. Not to oppose an evil is to indirectly support it. Very similar ideas are expressed in the other auspicious scriptures of the world. The Bible says, Happy are those who suffer persecution because they do what God requires. The kingdom of heaven belongs to them. There is no sin in killing an aggressor. Whosoever helps and supports an aggressor is also an aggressor. Thus, all those who supported Kauravas were basically aggressors and deserved to be eliminated. If you will not fight this righteous war, then you will fail in your duty, lose your reputation, and incur sin. People will talk about your disgrace forever. To be honored, dishonor is a worse than death. The great warriors will think that you have retreated from the battle out of fear. Those who have greatly esteemed you will lose respect for you. Your enemies will speak many unmentionable words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful to you than this? You will go to heaven if killed in the line of duty, or you will enjoy the kingdom on the earth if victorious. Therefore, get up with the determination to fight, O Arjun. Treating pleasures and pain, gain and loss, and victory and defeat alike, engage yourself in your duty. By doing your duty this way, you will not incur sin. The wisdom of spiritual knowledge has been imparted to you, O Arjun. Now listen to the wisdom of Karma Yoga, the selfless service, Seva, endowed with which you will feel free yourself from the bondage or reactions of the karma. In Karma Yoga, no effort is ever lost and there is no adverse effect. Even little practice of this discipline protects one from the great fear of birth and death. A Karma Yogi has a resolute determination for God realization, O Arjun, but the desires of one who works to enjoy the fruits of the work are endless. The misguided ones who delight in the melodious chanting of the Vedas or any scripture without understanding its real purpose think, O Arjun, as if there is nothing else in it except the rituals for the sole purpose of obtaining heavenly enjoyment. They are dominated by the material desires and consider the attainment of heaven as the highest goal of life. They engage in specific rites for the sake of prosperity and enjoyment. Rebirth is the result of their action. The resolute determination of self-realization is not formed in the minds of those who are attached to pleasure and power and whose judgment is obscured by such ritualistic activities. A portion of the Vedas deals with three modes or states of the material nature. Become free from the pairs of opposites, be ever balanced and unconcerned with the thoughts of acquisition and preservation. Rise above the three states and be self-conscious, O Arjun. To a self-realized person, scriptures are as useful as a small reservoir of water when the water of a huge lake becomes available. You have control over your respective duty only, but no control or claim over the results. The fruits of work should not be your only motive, and you should never be inactive. Do your duty to the best of your ability, O Arjun, with your mind attached to the Lord, abandoning worry and attachment to the results, and remaining calm in both success and failure. The calmness of mind is called Karma Yoga. Work done with selfish motives is inferior by far to the selfless service or Karma Yoga. Therefore, be a Karma Yogi, O Arjun. Those who work only to enjoy the fruits of their labor are in truth unhappy, because one has no control over the results. A true Karma Yogi becomes free from both vice and virtue in this very life. Therefore, strive for Karma Yoga, working to the best of one's abilities without becoming attached to the fruits of work is called Karma Yoga. Wise Karma Yogis are freed from the bondage of rebirth by renouncing attachment to the fruits of all the work and attain a blissful divine state. When your intellect completely pierces the wheel of confusion, then you will become indifferent to what has been heard and what is to be heard from the scriptures. When your intellect, that is confused by the conflicting opinions and the ritualistic doctrine of the Vedas, shall stay steady and firm on concentrating on the Supreme Being, then you shall attain union with the Supreme Being in trance. Arjun said, O Krishna, what are the marks of an enlightened person whose intellect is steady? How does a person of steady intellect speak? How does such a person sit and walk? The Supreme Lord said, one who is completely free from all the desires of the mind and is satisfied with the eternal being, that is God, by the joy of eternal being, then one is called an enlightened person, O Arjun. A person whose mind is unperturbed by sorrow, who does not crave pleasures, and who is completely free attachment, fear, and anger is called a sage of steady mind. Those who are not attached to anything, who are neither elated by getting desired results nor troubled by the undesired results, their intellect is considered steady. When one can completely withdraw the senses from its sense objects, as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into the shell for protection from dangers, then the intellect of such a person is considered steady. The desire for sensual pleasures fades away if one abstains from sense enjoyment, but the craving for sense enjoyment remains. The craving also disappears from one who has known the Supreme Being. Restless senses, O Arjun, forcibly carry away the mind of even a wise person striving for perfection. One should fix one's mind on me with loving contemplation after bringing the senses under control. One's intellect becomes steady when one's senses are under complete control. One develops attachment to sense objects by thinking about the sense objects. Desire for sense objects comes from attachment to sense objects, and anger comes from unfulfilled desires. Delusion or wild ideas arise from anger. The mind is bewildered by delusion. Reasoning is destroyed when the mind is bewildered. One falls from the right path when reasoning is destroyed. A disciplined person enjoying sense objects with senses that are under control and free from likes and dislikes attains tranquility. All sorrows are destroyed upon attainment of tranquility. The intellect of such a tranquil person soon becomes completely steady and united with the source. There is neither self-knowledge nor self-perception to those who are not united with the eternal being. Without self-perception there is no peace, and without peace there can no happiness. The mind, when controlled by roving senses, steals away the intellect as a storm takes a boat on the sea from its destination, the spiritual shore. Therefore, O Arjun, one's intellect becomes steady when the senses are completely withdrawn from its sense objects. A yogi, the person of self-restraint, remains wakeful when it is night for all others. It is night for a yogi who sees when all others are wakeful. What is considered real by a yogi is of no value for a worldly person, and vice versa. One attains peace when all desires dissipate within the mind without creating any mental disturbance. Just as river water enters into the full ocean without creating any disturbance, and one who abandons all the desires and becomes free from longing and the feeling of I and my attains the peace. O Arjun, this is the superconscious state of mind. Attaining this state, one is no longer deluded. Gaining this state, even at the end of one's life, a person attains nirvana or becomes one with the absolute. So here the chapter number 2 summary of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ends. So if you guys liked it, then please share it with your friends and please subscribe to the channel. ओके सो अब मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में जिसमें हम चैप्टर नंबर 3 ऑफ श्रीमद् भगवद गीता को स्टार्ट करेंगे. ओके जी, जय श्री कृष्णा.